What was Michael like as a child?
Oh, he was, of course, he was a year younger than his older brother, and I think this probably influenced him. As a child, I think he was really quite quiet and serious, was always asking, you know, about reasons for things. One of my clear memories is when he first started with one of these bolted together toys, and I used to come in from work and he'd run up saying, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," you know, lovely time in people's lives. And he would come up and he'd screw two of these two bits together and he said, "Daddy, look, this is a little bit of a broken helicopter." And that was a particular memory. But as he grew older, I think he was never as interested in sports as I was, but I do remember on one occasion watching him and his brother playing football. I would think they were probably 8 or 9, no, maybe a little bit less. But William, his older brother, was running vigorously after a group of kids who were banging the ball in different directions, and Michael was the other end of the pitch doing handstands. And I think in a way that differentiate his character, certainly from his brothers and maybe from most others.
And did he always sit straight up, have his mouth closed, breathe through his nose, like your theory is?
Well, no. As a child, he had quite a severe malocclusion. His baby teeth, which should be at the age of 5 have big spaces in them, were actually crowded, which is quite unusual and normally leads to a very severe malocclusion. And that is why I decided he needed treatment at the age of 5. And I started with the usual orthotropics, widening his upper jaw.
And how did it progress from that?
He was a very good patient. He never once complained. He wore all his appliances he should do. And I had, in fact, in a very big contrast with his brother. But remember, at that time, I was just learning myself. I'd only just come up with the idea of orthotropics, and Michael was one of the first patients that I experimented on.
So you experimented on your son?
Oh, absolutely. He was not likely to sue me.
So what do you remember your father being like when you were a kid?
Well, I mean, he's your dad. I mean, it's difficult to say what that's like because it's normal, isn't it? But we've said he was always very different. He was always very different from friends, parents, in the fact that people would say, "Oh, let's do this," and it was, you know, sounded like a pipe dream. We would do our pipe dreams. We actually enacted them. We went and did the things. You know, we lived our dreams. It's always been one of the great mottos of our family. So we did lots of more interesting and different things. And it was actually my friends' reactions to what we did that made me realise just how different we were being. Dad bought this Bedford van, we kitted it out with bunk beds and sleeping arrangement. We'd take loads of friends and go skiing, and that's how we managed the costs of going skiing, getting everyone together.
And one of the reasons that we used to go on these holidays was really, I think, to broaden their mind. I mean, I couldn't afford to take them on the holidays I would like. So I would maybe hire a boat or maybe several boats, and I'd say, "Why don't you ask all your kids to come?" And we would. I can remember us hiring a fleet of boats going out to Greece, and then everybody joining in, and it would enable everybody to have a very cheap holiday. But all our children basically didn't want to come on the holiday with us unless all their friends could come too. So we would arrange for all their friends, and we would often do these group holidays with, 20, 25 people, all together occupied. I mean, we'd go down the Ardèche River in canoes, or we'd sail around the Aegean Sea, or we would ski in Wengen and other places in Switzerland as a group.
I remember we had 34 of us went skiing, all from the little town of Wadhurst where we lived. We got 34 people went skiing, and you got the prices down to about half price.
Oh.
With all the discounts Dad got.
Oh.
And in that way, we could all afford to go. And we could do these holidays we couldn't do otherwise. So yeah, we didn't have a rich existence. I mean, you'd made your money in property. You then started doing orthotropics, which made nothing. And we survived.
In a good way.
We brilliantly, you know.
We had fun.
We did, yeah. We had great fun.
Did you have a good childhood?
Brilliant. Oh, no, utterly, you couldn't have had a better childhood. You know, I couldn't have had a more ideal upbringing to make me who I am. Both my mother and my father, every aspect in every direction couldn't have been more perfect.
But what was it like for you having your father treat you?
I remember you taking out my lower incisor. Mm-hmm. I remember you saying, this is going to prick a little bit, and it pricked a little bit. I wouldn't say it actually hurt. And then you fiddling around and something odd going on in that area. So I remember that lower incisor being taken out. And apart from that, I have no recollection of the braces at all.
Why did he take?
Why did you take my lower incisor out?
Well, at that time, I remember he was one of the very first patients I ever treated with orthotropics. And in a way, I didn't have faith in my own ability to treat without any extractions at all. But at that time, I was not pushing the lower teeth forward as far, and therefore there was not space, and they were crowded, and I could see they would remain crowded. So yes, I removed a lower incisor. Interestingly, I hardly ever did so after that. It was a learning process for me.
So you wouldn't do that again now? With all
Never, no.
Well, we have sometimes, there have been odd cases.
In an older patient, yes, possibly, but never for anyone under 10.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, it depends on the situation. Now, sometimes you get people with odd setups, but as a general rule, we don't do that much anymore.
So your father has treated you. How about you treating your children?
But of course, you know, I couldn't. You know, for me, I have two people in my custody who I've got to do the best for I can. You know. There, and trying to get them to grow well is really important, because, you know, I'm doing it for their health benefit. I want them to be healthy, to be able to stand up straight, be able to have their mouth closed and breathe properly. I started both of them when they were 4, so even earlier than you did. But I've also learned so much. I've learned how hard it is to encourage someone to rest with their lips together, sit up straight, chew their food properly with their mouths together. You know, just simply getting Zarina to chew with biting together when she swallows. That's a hard thing to do. And getting her to realise how important that is. And sometimes I wonder if it's as her daddy trying to get her to realise these things. You know, I've realised just how hard work it is. It's growing up kids. It's as hard to get them to grow well as it is to get them to improve mentally.
Do you think there's a magnifying glass on your daughters, you being Mike Mew?
Yeah, completely. They're completely. I think that, in a way, the orthotropic movement has been advanced because I've got a square jaw and Dad doesn't. And the fact that I'm emblematic, my square jaw is emblematic of the Mewing movement and this whole movement, I'm sure that has helped move things. It shouldn't do. It shouldn't matter. But in this world, it does. And in that same way, how my daughters' faces grow is going to be important. I'm aware of that. That's on the back of my mind. Clearly, I'm really trying to make certain that is not why I'm treating my children, because that would be wrong motivation for treating my children. I've got enough motivation for treating my children as it is. I don't need that extra motivation. I do kind of sense that over the back of my head.
So as an orthotropics doctor, what is the most important thing you've learned from your father?
The most important thing. Okay, the single most important is remember that this is a disease that the individual does themselves. Okay, you can be all high and fine with concepts, protocols, appliances, but at the end of the day, it's what the individual does that counts. That's the most fundamental thing. That's what everyone's got to learn.
Do you agree?
Absolutely. Orthotropics is about posture, and there's only one person who can control posture.
And how do you feel like, what do you feel about Michael following your footsteps?
I followed in my father's footsteps for the simple reason that he so obviously enjoyed what he did. And I suspect that applies to Michael too, but only he knows the reason.
Yeah, I sometimes I wonder why I followed it, especially when the chips are down. Yeah. Oh, well, what else could I have done in life? I could see Dad enjoyed it. You fascinated me with talking about it. You know, it was just fascinating. It seemed a sensible career. So one of the things I was toying when I made my final decision was between architecture and dentistry. I really fancied being an architect. Maybe I'd have been good at it, who knows. But what I realised in dentistry is you're your own boss much of the time. You know, you do what you want to do. As a dentist, in the room, in the surgery you work in, there's no one looking over you telling you what you should be doing all the time. Where if you're an architect, you're working most of the time for someone else, doing things for that person. Mm-hmm. And it's rare for an architect to achieve a position where they're really doing what they want to do. Whereas in dentistry, it was quite well paid. You were in control of yourself. You're your own boss. You can take time off. You could go traveling. You could do many things. It had lots of pluses to it. But I think whenever you're weighing the pluses and minuses up, you're really deciding on what you want to do.
You both got into quite a lot of trouble being an orthotropics doctor. Don't you think it would have been better for Michael if you would have become an architect?
Right. I mean, orthotropics in a way has brought me nothing but pain, although I would like to think it's helped a lot of other people. But he followed me out of his own will, and we actually think very similarly, despite that, although we differ on some points, inevitably.
Yes.
Because you do have the greatest discussions together, don't you?
Oh, we have, we have, on everything, literally, everything.
We wouldn't have such good discussions if we agreed.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, at times we have some really quite strong debates and arguments about points. You know, big storms and little teacups. But there are a lot of fundamental things we disagree on. Although I would say 95% of we agree on.
But your father is 93 now. He's not going to be around for 20 more years. Who is going to be your other next person to test your ideas on? I
don't know. I would love to have people of your stature around me that I can bounce ideas off, who think I will. When you go, Dad, and inevitably you will go, I will sorely miss you, and I will sorely miss the mental exchange that we have.
Yes.
Because it helps center me. It helps bring me back, and I saw I help center you, because it's easy to head off the piste mentally with your ideas and everything else. And it's important to do that, because that's where you get new ideas off the piste. But you also need to know when to be brought back, and
yes,
with some sensible advice.
That is where two people are so much better than one. One person can go off-piste, but they do need to know the disadvantages, and naturally you tend to be blind to the disadvantages in your own thoughts.
Yeah. It's important to have someone pull you back.
Yes.
And be critical, and you can be.
Yes.
So what's the future of orthotropics going to be like?
Well, the future of my idea is to set up a system where your doctors doing treatment are rewarded for how much change, how much of an upswing they get in facial form, and I don't care what method they use. Orthotropics is not prescriptive. If a hypnotist can persuade people to change and gain an upswing in facial form, then he's doing orthotropics. Orthotropics is no appliance, it's no system, it is just a concept. And there shouldn't be someone telling you what it is being prescriptive.
I think orthotropics will change a lot. I see more and more orthodontists, but sadly not in this country, but around the world, adopting aspects of orthotropics. As Michael says, I think that anybody could treat a 5-year-old child purely by telling them to keep their mouth shut. That is all they would need. Perhaps some hard food or chewing gum as well, but that alone would cure all malocclusion. However, there will always be children who do not receive that attention, and the orthodontists, I believe, are gradually going to lose influence as people such as oral myologists and maybe just simple dentists will guide parents to bring their children up correctly. And of course, by the age of 15, children will themselves want to look better, and they will teach themselves.
And be healthier.
I think the whole pattern of treatment will change.
Yeah, so you are kind of optimistic about the way, you know, the influence that you've set in that will grow further.
I believe so, yes. I think, like everything in this world, it will take a long time. But gradually, the orthodontic concepts, which are very mechanical, you cannot treat a biological problem with mechanics. And people have not yet realized what causes malocclusion. Once they realize that, they will begin to look for different and self-cures.
So you are optimistic about the future of...
Oh, absolutely. I think humans are very stupid, but in the end, they get most things right.